Hi, everybody, and welcome back to GBTV. We're a week away from spring break.
If you've been hearing any rumors about going back in person, they've been confirmed. More information should be released in the upcoming weeks.
Everyone's looking forward to the end of the third quarter, but before the end of the week, be ready for some events on Wednesday and Thursday.
GBTV will be streaming one of those events, the Grandview Choir Concert, on March 10th and 11th at 5:30, so don't miss out.
That's not all. The girls' swimming state meet is on Thursday.
Now to Jessie Grubenhoff for a sit-down with Ms. Hogarth.
Hey Grandview, last week was the finale of our school-wide read with a visit from Jason Reynolds, the author of Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. I'm here with Mrs. Hogarth, who you might recognize from the library, for a quick discussion on the book, the author, and the importance of being informed. So, Mrs. Hogarth, what is the school-wide read?
The school-wide read, Jessie, is something that we've been doing now. This is the 5th year. School-wide read is when we choose one book that we believe talks about a very important and timely issue, and a book that probably wouldn't be covered in a traditional English class. And we offer it to any student or staff member in Grandview who would like to read it. Anybody who signs up gets a book of their own to keep, to read, and then we do an event at the end. The first year we did it was The Hate You Give, and the culminating event at the end was we all went and saw the movie. We rented out a theater down the street and got to see it together. The last several years we've managed to get author visits, so authors to come in and talk to and talk about their books. And so that's what the school-wide read is.
Awesome. Can you enlighten me as to why you chose Stamped for this year's book?
Sure. Stamped has gotten a lot of attention starting this summer. I started reading about it in the wake of racial injustices, racial marches and protests that were happening this summer. A lot of people were reacting in various ways. Some people react in anger. Some people react by, trying to really look away and ignore the issues or deny the issues. Some people feel shame. So I think a lot of people wanted to, first feel the emotions they needed to feel, but then to try to educate themselves, try to figure out, okay, this is going on out here. Where is this coming from? What does this stem from? What can I do about it today? And there were a lot of books that started coming to the surface that people were looking at. In Stamped, I had read was great because it brought this conversation to a level of high school, even middle school age. And so I read it and I love Jason Reynolds. I love the way he writes. I've read some of his other books, which are, by the way, right behind me. You can come get any of his books here in the library. And I just thought, what an important topic, and told in such a student-friendly way that really any of us can access.
The next question I have is, how important do you think it is for high schoolers specifically to stay informed about current events?
When I was in high school, I was not very informed about current events, but I feel like now there was no such thing as social media when I was in high school. First of all, I graduated in 1999, but now with social media, I think it's pretty impossible to have no idea what's going on in the world, but I also think it's easy to have misconstrued ideas of what's going on in the world. So I believe today, and with this age of social media and just everything is just clickable and so easy to find, I think that I see a lot more students interested in taking part, taking action, or at least getting educated in what's going on in their world, whether it be the greater world or whether it be just right here in the Aurora community. And I think that that's great that they're able to get involved.
Awesome. Me too. It makes me feel very encouraged that information is so easily available to all kinds of people. Mr. Reynolds, during his visit, said something that I found very, very interesting coming from an author. He said that lots of the books about racism and anti-racism are very intellectual and stuffy, which wasn't very much his style or a high schooler style. So he actually encouraged us to look for different ways to inform ourselves, like podcasts or YouTube videos. What would you recommend as a way for high schoolers to inform themselves reliably and entirely?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think, we all have, I'm an English teacher and a librarian, and in the English department, we have our curriculum, and we have really been buying new and different books lately, but we're never going to be able to find books that speak, never is there going to be a book that speaks to every single person, right? So I think it's really important that, students are assigned to or required to read certain books, but if they know they're really interested in another topic, go to your library, go to Amazon, go to Barnes and Noble and find books about things you're interested in. Same with every other subject, our social studies, our science, we all have curriculums, but if you hear something that really piques your interest, but that we don't get to spend a ton of time on in class, go find books about that. I don't know about you, but in Stamped, I realized what a limited understanding and what limited knowledge I had about some of our most notable figures like Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln. And so, and as you know, Jason Reynolds, it was a quick read. So he didn't spend, in the unabridged version of Stamped, the original one by Ibram X. Kendi, I think there's like 200 pages just on Thomas Jefferson. And of course, this was an abridged version, but I got really interested and I went and did my own research on Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson to try to figure out what is this story? I really don't know that much about these prominent figures in our country. So I think it's just being curious. And when you find something that you're curious about, go after it, go find it, get a book, go to a podcast. You guys know more about podcasts than I do. I tell you what, my seniors, we were talking about podcasts. They could list off so many, and just educate yourself, find ways to learn about things you care about.
The next thing I would want to ask you about is, what were your major takeaways from the end of the book specifically? I haven't quite finished. I really, really wanted to, just got a little too busy, but what was the most important thing that you brought away from the end of the book?
I thought it was great. The title is Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism in You. And I thought it ended with a very powerful message that we can make a difference. We can be anti-racist and help sort of, hopefully dismantle racism and hopefully, kind of change the trajectory of where we're going right now by acting, by being aware of the history, because a lot of the book was spent on history, even though it claims not to be a history book. It definitely is. But then how it brings us to the present and brings us to, we can do things today. We don't have to feel just helpless or angry or guilty. We can do things that help extinguish these past problems.
I think that's a very important takeaway. I can't wait to read the very, very end. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
Thank you.
And Grandview, if you want to read more by Jason Reynolds, head down to the library. We have all of his works right there. Most of them are fictional, so if history isn't quite your thing, you can still inform yourself. And if you haven't read Stamped yet, you definitely should. It's super interesting and very much broadened our perspectives. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jessie. Next week, we won't have our Monday announcements or Friday feature, but we will have our sports announcements as girls head into the playoffs.
Thank you for tuning in. See you in 2 weeks.